Chapter 6. "Let's talk about boys now," Bettina said, tilting her blonde head charmingly at me. "There's this boy in my class. He goes, 'You got a cute nose.' Tina, you find more ways to waste time. Why don't you finish this problem and then we'll talk?" Tutoring Adam's sister could easily be a time of fun and games, because Bettina thought up more ways to avoid working than I could ever imagine. In the last half hour, she'd taken a bathroom break, gone to sharpen a pencil, then to find out when her mother was coming home. And now she wanted to talk about boys. But I was determined to make Tina understand fractions, even if it took twice the time I'd be paid for. As Bettina picked up her pencil, sighing deeply, I felt a pang of affection. She looked so much like Adam, with those clear blue eyes and golden hair. She even had many of his mannerisms, like peering up at me with lowered head. But they were very different. Bettina had little else on her mind except boys, and that childlike sweetness could change in a minute to vicious meanness if she didn't get her way. 3/8 plus 5/6 equals... Bettina nibbled the end of her pencil and watched me secretly for signs of softening. "His name is David, and when he said that, I go..." "Tina, do the problem." "Come on, I'm not paid to talk about boys," I said. Bettina bent thoughtfully over the paper, writing in a number, then checking my face, erasing the number, chewing her pencil, then writing again. At last she turned the page around for me to see. "That's good," I said. "I told you could do it. All you have to do is concentrate." "I'll flunk the test tomorrow. I just know it. I'm terrible in math." "Never mind, you'll pass the test tomorrow, and you could be good at math. Whoever said you couldn't?" "Girls aren't good at things like that." "My mother says so. It's unfeminine." "I'm good at math. Am I unfeminine?" Bettina raised one shoulder in a shrug and watched me with an odd intensity. "You're different." "How?" "You're Oriental." Bettina wet her lips and smiled slyly. "Mother says Orientals have special aptitudes for math and science." So that's what they said about me when I wasn't around. Should I be pleased? Even proud? A warning bell went off in my head, and the warmth I'd felt moments ago changed to caution. Friends, real friends, didn't make remarks like that. What else did Mrs. Tarcher say about Orientals, I wondered. How many of her prejudices had Adam absorbed? Well, isn't that true about Orientals? People are people, whatever their race or color. There's no special aptitude one class of people has over another, Oriental or not. And there's no reason why women can't be as good at math or science as men. Bettina shook her blonde curls impatiently. "I'm sick of talking about that. I finished the problem, so now let's talk about this boy I know." I put the math book away and threw the scratch papers in a basket, as Bettina scurried from the desk to jump on her white canopied bed. She reached for a large stuffed bear and hugged it to her chest, eyes rolled to heaven. "David? This boy at school?" Her eyes shone. "I think he likes me, but I'm not sure." Bettina went on to relate each word the boy had ever spoken to her, what she thought about him, what she thought he thought about her, what her girlfriend said, and on and on. I gazed around the spacious room, soothed as always by its rich carpeting and furnishings, but my thoughts were on the time. Normally I left the house right after the hour of tutoring, before Adam got home, but today I'd promised to stay as long as possible in case Adam could leave soccer practice early. We hadn't been alone together since Otero's class began, more than a week before. I felt almost a desperate need to feel his arms around me again. "So what do you think?" Bettina asked finally, bringing my attention back. "Should I go around with him? Not steady or anything, just going around." "Did you hear a car?" I asked, going to the window. "Amy, you're not even listening. You're just hoping my brother will get home." Bettina threw the bear at me. "Now pay attention. Does he like me or not?" I lifted the big toy off the floor and put it back on the bed, then picked up my purse and book. I think it's time for me to go, Tina. Please tell Adam I'm sorry I couldn't wait. I started to the door. And as for David, you might try backing off a bit. Boys don't like girls who come on too strong. I paused at the door. Good luck on the test tomorrow, Tina. See you next week. I hurried down the long hall on the highly waxed floors smelling of lemon, wishing I could stop to examine each beautiful painting on the walls between the many doors. But I didn't dare. What if Mrs. Tarcher came out of one of the rooms and saw me? Far away somewhere, I heard a grandfather clock chime, and distant voices amid the sounds of pots clashing. How could I feel so comfortable with Adam when I felt so uncomfortable in this, his home? And where was he? Why hadn't he got home early as planned? I stood at the top of the wide stairway leading to the entry, and for a moment imagined myself the mistress of this house. With my hair piled high, I'd be dressed in a filmy gown, and Adam would be waiting at the bottom step. Slowly, head high, with one hand on the polished oak banister, I drifted down the stairs. Amy! Oh, Mrs. Tarcher! The blood raced to my face. I felt as if she'd caught me with the family silver. Dressed in a beige linen suit, she stood at the foot of the stairs, looking past me, as if expecting Adam to be there. How's Tina doing? She asked, reaching for a packet of mail on the entry table. Fine. I think she understands fractions now. I hurried down the last steps and crossed the entry hall. Good, good. The voice was distracted. Then Mrs. Tarcher glanced at her watch. It's rather late, isn't it? Yes, I stayed a little longer. Tina has a test tomorrow, and I wanted to be sure. I put a hand on the doorknob, wanting to flee. Yes. Well, thank you, Eileen. We really appreciate all you've done. Mrs. Tarcher's gray eyes met mine for an instant and crinkled into a polite smile. We'll see how Tina does in that test, then call you if we feel she needs more coaching. Her attention returned to the letters in hand. She didn't even remember my name. She'd mixed me up with that Eileen Conley she wanted Adam to date. I was being dismissed and might not be returning. Shouldn't I be paid? Each time I came, no one said anything, and it was embarrassing to ask. Papa had said, "Embarrassed? Why, it's your due. Rich people sometimes forget others depend on money to live. You earned it. Ask." Mrs. Tarcher looked up, surprised to see me still waiting. Is there something else? Yes, Mrs. Tarcher. I've tutored Tina 6 times now, and you said I'd be paid. Of course you'll be paid, Adam's mother exclaimed. I'll write you a check right now if you like. Oh, no, that's not necessary. I quickly amended. You can mail it to me whenever it's convenient. The cool gray eyes settled briefly on me. Well, goodbye then, dear, and thanks again for your help. She had already turned away as I opened the door. Hurrying down the driveway to the gate in the growing darkness, I felt such a mix of emotions. Shame over my encounter with Mrs. Tarcher. Disappointment that Adam hadn't gotten away from soccer practice in time. Frustration that we got to see so little of each other. No matter where we went, it seemed like 100 eyes were always watching, ready to report us. A police car cruised by, slowing to look me over as I unlatched the gate. And then I heard the happy beep-beep of Adam's BMW. Adam screeched to the curb, opened the door, and jumped out. I rushed into his arms with a yelp of joy and buried my face in his chest. Amy, Amy, he whispered again and again into my hair. I thought I'd never get away. Coach wanted to go over every single play. I kept checking the clock and cutting everyone short, knowing you were waiting. I thought you'd forgotten. I waited as long as I could. I thought we'd miss each other again. And then your mother. It's all right, it's all right. He smoothed my hair with his hand. We're together now. He drew me back to the car, kissed me as if he couldn't get enough, then opened the door and helped me in. He ran around to the driver's side, climbed in, and reached for me again. We clung together, laughing and kissing, starting sentences and stopping them with each happy embrace. "Now, what's this about my mother?" he asked at last, when I curled against his shoulder. It was so good between us now. I didn't want to spoil things. "Nothing. Oh, nothing really." "No, tell me. Did she say something that hurt you? Come on, tell me." My voice broke as I said, "It's how she makes me feel. She acts almost as if I'm invisible. She called me Eileen. It's so obvious she thinks I'm not good enough for you." "Oh, honey, don't cry, please. My mother's the world's least sensitive woman. I've told you that. Who cares what she thinks?" "I do. I care what my parents think too, and they're just as unhappy about me seeing you." Adam pointed to himself. "Me? They don't like me? Such a clean, upstanding wasp like me?" "It's not funny. Please don't joke about it." Adam's face sobered. "Talking about trouble, I feel like that's all I'm into since this color game started. Yesterday, Carol insisted I curtsy to her right in front of my French teacher. When I made a joke of it, she got angry, and I had to do it, making me feel like 2 cents. Adam pulled me closer, as if seeking comfort. "I was rewarded yesterday. You know why? For being submissive when a G4 chewed me out. I feel sick just thinking about it." "Is it really so awful?" "Bowing is nothing. I do that automatically now, like brushing my teeth. What really gets to me is the constant feeling of being out of step with authority, the G4s, the upper collars. I've lived a blue all my life, yet now I feel really threatened. I go around smiling a lot as if everything's great. But inside I'm on guard, watching all the time, sure I'll do something that I'll get called down for." He stared at me for a long moment. "Do you suppose most poor people and minorities feel that way a lot of the time?" "I don't know. We're not poor. I do know we all wear masks. We smile when we're miserable. Pretend to like people we don't. And being non-white puts you even more on guard. Being poor, it's hard to keep your self-respect because it's the American way to have. I try to remember the few times I learned about people outside of my own narrow world of aunts, uncles, and close family. Once, when I was about Bettina's age, I went with my father to visit a man he knew who had lost an arm in an auto accident. He was a lathe operator, I think, so losing his arm was a terrible thing, because he couldn't work at that again. I remember a strange feeling in that house. Almost an odor. Fear. It was in the way the children crept around, watching and whispering. It was in his wife's eyes and stiffness. It was as if the whole family stood on the edge of a terrible crater and might fall in at any moment. What happened to them? Papa said they'd survive, that the mother would have to go to work, and in time the husband would find some way to help, but that all their dreams for a better life were smashed with that arm, because now all they could do was struggle to keep food on the table. Adam said nothing, staring thoughtfully out of the window, and in the dim light, I wondered what he was thinking. "I remember most what Papa said later," I added. "In America, and maybe everywhere in the world, we're judged by 2 things, by how much money we have and by our color. Money is power. If you have enough of it, people won't forget your color, but they'll at least pretend to." Adam nodded. "Yes, maybe that's why I feel so inadequate. Otero set it up so oranges have so little money to begin with that we're scared we'll lose the little we have. I'm not used to feeling insecure. I thought when the game started that all I had to do was work hard and I'd move up. People do. My grandfather started as a poor English immigrant and look what he built. But I'm not willing to take garbage, to grovel. From now on, I'm going to fight the system, somehow." "How?" I turned toward him so I could see his face better. Suddenly, I had a terrible thought. That I should report Adam's plans to the G4s. Blues wanted to keep things as they were, And if there was unrest, any sign of uprisings or protests among the poor, they needed to know about it. As soon as the thought surfaced, I pushed it away. How could I even think of betraying Adam? A light flashed through our window, and then a police car pulled up alongside. I sat straighter and inched away from Adam into the shadows. Policeman beamed his light into our car, illuminating Adam's face, then mine. "Is there some problem, officer?" Adam asked, without a trace of fear or servility. "This is a no parking area. May I see your license, please?" Adam didn't even reach for his wallet. "I live here? I'm Adam Tarcher." "Oh, Mr. Tarcher, I wasn't sure." The policeman's manner changed abruptly, and he started to put his notebook away. He glanced at me but spoke to Adam. "Just checking, you know. Don't like strangers loitering in this neighborhood." I tugged at Adam's sleeve and whispered, "I have to get home, Adam. It's late." A memory of another time and place started me shivering. Hideo had been stopped by a policeman on a motorcycle. The officer's manner hadn't been so polite. Before he left us, he chewed Hideo out and gave him a ticket. This policeman wouldn't do that. Not to Adam, one of the Valley Vista kids. "We'll be leaving in a moment, officer." "Thanks for checking," Adam said. "No trouble." The policeman got back into his car and in a moment drove away. Suddenly, I hated being in this neighborhood, getting privileged treatment just because of Adam. It made me feel alien and vulnerable and angry. I could hardly wait to get home.